I was out to dinner last night and was didn't look at my phone, picked up my phone, and it was like the rugby league world had kind of exploded.
We looked a little deficient on attack, but our defence is something that will get us to the top four. Parramatta played extremely well, but they just couldn't crack our defence.
Really interesting to me, Andrew Webster's comments after beating the Roosters that, people said we were crap. If you ever think that the coaches and the players don't read the comments, don't read the media, don't look at the social, they do.
Welcome to the DSPN.
Team New Zealand's in trouble.
Oh, he's done it again, Ricky Herbert.
The Devlin Sports Podcast Network.
Welcome to the podcast, people. Marty Devlin, Lachlan Waugh, DSPN. BLT means Big League Tuesday. Yep, we're talking league today. Jake Duke joining us from Fox Sports, sideline commentator. His thoughts on the 3 rounds we played so far, plus, of course, where the Warriors are at. As well as that, Matt Gunn, big-time Doggies fan, his whole life. He's delighted at their start. And we're going to play Glass Half Full, where we look at not every team in the NRL, but we go down the points table and we have a look at most of the teams and how you're feeling about them. Glass half full, glass half empty after 3 rounds. Big sermon coming about the Warriors, but before we do that, I was at Eden Park last night watching the All Whites beat New Caledonia very comfortably, 3-0. Just a really weird game of sport it was. I've never been to any game of sport ever where you knew the result, not the score, but you knew the result before you walked in. Normally there's jeopardy attached with sport, isn't there? There's always the fear of the unknown. You don't know whether or not maybe the team's going to stuff this up. But no, that was never going to happen. The All Whites, as soon as FIFA guaranteed direct entry for the winner from Oceania, we were going. It was as simple as that. I mean, this is a team of professionals playing largely amateurs. It felt like a practice match last night, like all the qualification matches have been. And it's not just me saying this. Michael Boxall, who scored the first goal last night and his first for the All Whites, said as much afterwards. He said, look, as soon as we got direct entry, we knew we were going to the World Cup. It's more important now to focus on what we're going to do now that we're going, as opposed to the getting there, part of the process. And look, I was around in 1982, 17, and that was just an epic struggle. 15 games to be one of the 24 teams to make it to Spain. In 2010, we still had to earn qualification by beating Bahrain home and away. But this didn't feel like it's earned. It felt like it had been given to us, handed to us. We got a free ticket to the World Cup. So it's still worth celebrating, of course. It's only the 3rd time that's ever happened. But the celebration's a little tempered, a little subdued. And I think, that is why. Because it kind of felt like, we were always going. It's not like we had to go through this massive big haul or effort to get there. Well done, we're there. But it's kind of felt like a little bit of a free ticket.
We live in an amazing, amazing world, and it's wasted on the crappiest generation of just spoiled idiots.
So what about them Warriors then? Super gutsy win last Friday night, a real 2023 kind of performance in fact. No, it wasn't perfect, but good enough to get the job done. I thought we played like we did in 2023 when we won 16 games. The Roosters could have easily been out of sight in that game, literally a bounce of the ball away from 2 tries. That might have killed the contest off early on, but the Warriors hung tough. They, as is often said in league circles, hung in the fight. So a really tough 2 points gained and a vital win too in character terms, which is equally important as evidenced by Coach Webby's reaction at the post-match presser. He said, "We were told we were crap." And that was a direct reference to the spray the team copped after that abject effort versus the Raiders in Vegas. And that hurt all right. Yes, it was deserved. Yes, it hurt. And the coach was eager to point out that no, the Warriors aren't that weak-ass side we saw in round 1. This year's rendition been much more like what we saw 2 years ago when the team finished 4th. He both needed and wanted to make that point clear. So much for the players and the coaches who constantly tell us, we don't read the media, we don't listen to the outside noise. Like hell they don't. Of course they do. They're humans. They got egos. They want to know what people are saying about them. It's as much a part of the job as the big hits and the line breaks. Look, in my 25 years experience covering sport, one thing I've learned is that any sports person who ever says they don't read what's written about them is more likely to be the first person that actually does. But back to the team. After 3 rounds, the Warriors are for the first time in over a year back in the top 8. This is also important, psychologically perhaps right now, more than mathematically. Once you're in the 8, you want to stay there. Keep winning and you do. You know this. 4 below the 500, fall outside the 8 and you spend most of the season playing catch-up. Even at this very early stage, this is the kind of comp where you want to be one of those teams being chased as opposed to a team doing the chasing. It never gets any easier though. Another intriguing matchup coming this Sunday against a revitalised Tigers side, and that's a team that's also 2-1. Win that and the Warriors will be firmly in the 8 with a bye next up. 8 points after the first 5 rounds would qualify as a great start to the season. And after what Coach Webster acknowledged was a disastrous round 1, that would, I'm sure even the critics would agree, very much be a job well done.
Devlin.
It's time, Lachlan. It's Tuesday. We're talking league to play.
Glass half full.
Well, I'm going to go through some teams and different combinations, machinations from the NRL points table, and you're going to tell me whether you're glass half full, glass half empty. Yes! Let's start with the Warriors. You've got to be glass half full. You cannot be anything other than glass half full.
I'd be doing a disservice to the job and the sport of rugby league and the NRL and the Warriors to say that I'm glass half empty, because they're 2-1.
Hang on a second. I'm just about to fall off my chair backwards with surprise. This is a first, ladies and gentlemen. This is a first. We've been working together about 3 years and more, okay? Are you about to say something nice about the Warriors?
Can I just say, you won't remember this, you would have conveniently forgotten it, but I have remembered it, that in 2023, I applauded that club for what they had done and their turnaround, and I had directed all of my praise towards the coach Andrew Webster. No one else. I don't want to talk about the head office or ownership or whatever. I thought it was all Andrew Webster's doing, and I think and I'm not being critical of the head office, but not a lot had changed there, and the coach had changed, so it was quite obvious. So last year I gave it to them, like you did.
Yeah, and they deserved it.
And they deserved it. And this year, if they win and they emulate what they did 2 years ago, which is the only way I think they're going to have any success, because they lack some of that
They don't
genuine
have the firepower,
talent.
I don't believe, to take out the best.
They
teams.
have some, which was shown on Friday night. But I still think we'll get to this a bit more. But I still think they just lack a little bit of class in the halves, particularly from a kicking game perspective. And the way to overcome that is hard work, error-free rugby league.
Yep.
Just doing the basics right.
I think so. Look,
because that'll take down quite a few teams.
Shrinking the field in,
yep.
And just doing what they did in 2023, which is not make a lot of errors, which has come big time at the back end of games. Remember in 2023, the last 20 minutes, the Warriors owned a lot of those games.
Yeah.
And, just really resting and rotating their bench really well, doing that. Just doing the simple things right. Basic error-free rugby league wins you more games than you're going to lose. And then, let whatever happens after that. But I'm really pleased for them at the moment, given the fact that they deserved to cop it after game one. And if you're the kind of fan that thinks, you aren't a fan because you criticise them, well, I just don't understand that. I mean, each to his own. But when the team plays like crap, they deserve to wear it. And they were crap against Canberra, no question. They rebounded really well against Manly. And I think I call it a character win against the Roosters, because I think it was. There were times during that game where they were just so stretched and looked as though they were going to lose or concede points. And they hung in and then scored in the 63rd minute or 64th minute, which was devastating to the Roosters.
Yes, 65th and 70th.
There you go. Great. That was a really good win. And it was a 2023 win, so very pleased for them. Yes! Glass half full, glass half empty, the Panthers.
It's very easy to be glass half empty. I'm going to say middle. It's initially glass half empty, and then it's topped up a little bit, because they're 1 and 2. They've conceded 38 points to the Roosters and 30 to Melbourne, which is very un-Panthers over the last 4 or 5 years. And they are missing some key players. Obviously, they lost some players in the off-season in terms of going to other clubs, and Nathan Cleary, his return is TBC, so I would assume he'd miss at least one. He could miss 2. But the depth of that club, and clearly the coaching of Ivan Cleary and his assistants, not that it was ever in doubt, but it was proven more so, they are doing a hell of a job, and there are some seriously good young players there, because Melbourne should have run away with that game on Thursday. And they did it. So Penrith, we knew this already, but it was further enforced. This is a club that is well coached, and they have some seriously good players who probably aren't as established yet. So it's easy to be glass half empty based on the fact they're 1 and 2, defending premiers. They've got some injuries, lost some key players, but there's some green shoots there to get excited about.
Well, I'm glass half empty on them. I don't think they're winning it this year, and I don't think I'm the first to say that.
We've had 3 weeks.
Yeah, I just don't. Well, I don't think they.
The Cowboys started 0-3 in 2015 and won the premiership.
I think they are a definite final side, and perhaps even better than that, top 4, top 2 side. But I just don't think that they're beating Melbourne when it comes to the crunch this year.
Well, okay, Melbourne beat them twice last year, and last year Penrith missed Nathan Cleary. I think he only played 14 of the 24 regular season games.
But they had Luai to cover, though, didn't they?
Well, they had Luai to cover, yeah. So it's different this year. But one thing they've proven over the last year. Now I'm sort of countering my own point here, but one thing they've proven is they can still win big games when they lose these origin level players.
I'll go half glass middle in that case.
Well, I'm not trying to.
But look at the players that they don't have. Kiko.
Well, they haven't had him for about. This is the third year they haven't had him.
Crichton.
This is the second year they haven't.
Coruscant.
This is the third year they haven't had him.
You imagine adding those 4 guys back to that team?
I don't.
I mean, no one would beat them.
Look. Tony Kemp does this a fair bit, and it's fair to an extent. But I don't think you can really bring up the likes of Kiko and Crichton and Coruscant if Penrith won a premiership without those guys.
Okay.
Like Luai and Fisher Harris, yes, we could be nervous about that.
Glass half full, glass half empty. Storm.
Well, middle, because
middle.
No. But this is what Melbourne. This is what they do. They win games. They race out of the blocks early on. They looked very good. Well, actually, no. They didn't look good against Penrith. They looked good for the first sort of 20 minutes, half an hour, and they should have run away with that game. They had a couple of moments in the second half that won the game, and they did win it against the 4-time defending premiers.
And comfortably.
Well, no, it wasn't comfortable. It wasn't comfortable.
I don't think they were ever going to lose the game, were they?
Well, there was a moment there where Penrith scored 2 quick tries. I don't know if they'll quick. They scored 2 tries, and it was 24-20, and they had a bit of momentum, and they knocked the ball on, and that gave it back to. Melbourne should have won that by more, but they looked
glass half full
in round 1. I told you, I'm middle.
Oh God, glass half full.
But how can you be anything different? Melbourne have done this for 20 years,
glass
22
half
years.
Full, glass half empty. Gunnies Bulldogs.
Glass half full. Very easy to look at that game.
You chop and change on the Dogs? No, you're on the dog train.
Yeah, no, I'll admit I got it wrong on the Dogs because I said pre-season that I thought they could miss the top 8.
And they're missing 2 of their best players.
Well, yes, because I'm not certain on their halves, because I think many people would agree with this. Toby Sexton isn't a seasoned, successful halfback, but he's playing well, and he played well last year. So the Bulldogs look really good, and they look really good without 2 key players. So there's clearly a little bit of steel in them now that they can actually overcome a bit of adversity.
Defence on the weekend.
And also, it's easy to look at that game and think, oh, geez, Dogs only beat Parramatta by
they defended bloody well, mate.
Parramatta played well.
Yeah,
Parramatta was a spirited performance from them. So the Dogs, glass half full, absolutely. They are a top 4 side.
8 teams in the comp are at 2-1. Glass half full, glass half empty about that. Isn't that great? This has got to be glass half full. It says everything about the competition and the evenness of it. Manly, Tigers, Broncos, Sharks, Warriors, Raiders, Knights, Rabbits, and sandwiched in there are the Titans because they've got the...
How about those Titans? Well, I know we'll get to them in a sec.
But glass half full about the competition at the moment.
Oh, yeah, but this is the NRL. You know, Super Rugby's now finally taken a leaf out of their book in terms of the closeness of the comp, but the NRL's been doing this for years.
It's great, isn't it?
Every year there's, you'll have 1 or 2 teams who stand out as your favourites. This year it was Melbourne and Penrith. And then you have about 12 teams who all have a right to sit there and say, hey, we can make we'll make the 8, but we can make the top 4.
Look, it's like,
it's always been a great comp.
You know, we debated this at another job last year a lot, where you'd look at the Super Rugby draw on the weekend and you go, oh, well, that's the only game worth watching, right? And there'd be 4 or 5 NRL games, you think, oh, I can't miss any of these.
It's totally flipped for me this year. I know this is not a Super Rugby segment, but that for me, prime time, like on Saturday, I was watching Crusaders Blues.
Same.
I'm putting on Super Rugby here.
That was the game of the round. Cronulla Sharks. Glass half full, glass half empty on them. 2-1 they are.
Yeah, glass half full.
He's changed his tune on them as well. You always hate the Sharks. You're always down on the Sharks.
I was down on them last year until they won a finals game. Because that was the one thing they hadn't done. They were they'd lost in straight sets, if you will, previous couple of years. So they had a lot to prove last year, but they won a finals game. That's why I was down on them last year.
Now.
This year, look, there's still, in a bigger picture thing, there's always going to be a question mark over Nico Hines and his ability to guide a team to silverware
until
success.
He does, until he gets close.
But they continue to win these regular season games and perform well in the regular season. Against Souths, the first 30 minutes, 40 minutes. Now, it's easier when it's a dry track. I think when you're playing in really warm, sunny conditions on a Saturday afternoon, that can really sort of break a game further open than actually what those 2 teams are. Obviously, the wet weather brings them closer together. But the Sharks, I think 2 of their tries actually started in a similar way, where Mulatalo ran it out pretty much from the end goal, and then it was finished off by Edo. I mean, they looked so good early on, but then I think a lot needs to be said about the concentration of that club.
Give them a full.
Hold up, but that for the second half, or really for the last half hour, they didn't do much.
Give them a full.
I did give you a full. I've done that, but I'm just saying that
with the caveat on
it. The caveat is there wasn't a full. Now, there's no such thing as an 80-minute performance, but you can have something close to it, and that wasn't close to it at all.
Okay. Glass half full, glass half empty. West Tigers, who the Wars play on Sunday, as you know, 8:15. First round, Knights, narrow loss, 8-10. Beat the Eels 32-6 after a scratchy start, just piled the points on. And beat the Dolphins 30-18. And again, broke that game late when Coruscant became Coruscant again. And Luai stepped up. 34 points conceded, that's 11 a game. So they're obviously defending well. Glass half full, glass half empty on the Tigers.
Yeah, the defence in particular against Newcastle in round 1 was very good. They are yet to face, I think, an opponent that really will test them.
Yeah, well, the two of them, they've beaten, they're in the bottom 3 and haven't won a game yet, okay? So,
and as much as the Knights have the tools to get into the top 8 again this year, I don't think they're up there, of course, with the Sharks. I don't think they're up there with the Seagulls even, or you could argue the Raiders maybe. And their teams are in that sort of that bottom half of the top 8 come the season's end, likely. But I think you can't be glass half empty because of where they've been the last few years, and they're 2-1, and they're sitting fourth. They were second on the table after Saturday.
It's just crazy, eh?
Second.
This is why this is a really important game for both of these teams, Warriors and Tigers, and it wraps up the round on Sunday. It's a brilliant time for it. I mean, if after all the sport you watch on the weekend, park yourself up on the couch or in bed on Sunday night. Put it on.
In bed?
I go to bed earlier, mate. I get up at 4:30 in the morning. So
you'd go to bed early anyway.
Sunday night, mate. I'm in bed at 8 o'clock.
But you're in bed at 8 o'clock on a Friday. The Tigers, though, if I can be a bit of a party pooper, as the kids would say, the Dolphins looked. They were a different side in that first half. But they just fell away.
Do you know what?
And there was no response.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about it.
There is no response from that Dolphins team in the second half. So I don't think the Tigers were given that sterner test. So yes, they came back. They were down 18-6 at one point. They scored 24 unanswered. Yeah,
something like that. Yeah.
But it wasn't. It's against a team that are really bad. I think.
Glass half full, glass half empty. Dolphins, Cowboys, Eels. Is the wooden spoon deciding? Is the wooden spoon decided between those three already? Is it? I mean, they're all going to have their moments as the Eagles had their moments, right?
I think the Dragons need to have a big performance. Who have the Dragons got next? So the Dragons have the Storm next.
Yeah, well, they're 0-2.
Okay. I was going to say, the Dragons could fall into that group, and they probably...
the Dolphins look as though that they've just lost all direction, and that's because they've lost their figurehead, right? And I can't see them coming back from this. They're not making
It's not just direction, but it's just a little bit of, it sounds a bit childish, the word, but it's a bit of enthusiasm.
Yeah, I mean, look, they dropped away really badly in the last 20 minutes of that game, and they just looked...
They didn't... It's like you're in a boxing fight, and you've got the edge, you're landing some good punches, and then you get smacked pretty hard, and you've got to respond, and if you don't, well, then you're losing, essentially. That's what happened against the Tigers. They were pedestrian against the Knights.
Yeah, they were.
And against the Bunnies, there was a few glimpses, but none of that has been built on the last few weeks. Again, the first 30 minutes against the Tigers was great, but when they needed to respond, they didn't. Oh. I'm the most concerned about the Dolphins out of them, the Cowboys, and the Eels, because for the Cowboys, I'm such a big Todd Payton fan that a lot needs to go wrong for me to think that they're going absolutely nowhere with him as the coach. And also with the Eels, they've shown a lot of fight through the first 3 weeks. They've shown a fair bit of fight.
When does Farnworth start sending text messages back to the Broncos and go, I want to come back?
We don't need him.
Yeah, get him back. He's a damn good player, mate. He doesn't want to be in a side like the Dolphins.
He's a good player.
He's a really good player. He's one of their best players.
To toot the Broncos' horn for a second, we have so much talent in the outside backs that we don't need him.
No, mate, he's one of the best centres in the comp.
No, well, he is, but... Well, I don't think this is going to... I don't think he's better than Katoni Staggs.
Glass half full, glass half empty. Your Broncos.
Me personally, or do you want me to be objective or biased?
You're never going to be objective about it.
I'll be objective for a second. Glass half full, they're 2-1. They're inside the top 8, and after what happened last year, any fan needs to be pleased and happy with that. And they beat the 5 straight wins for the Cowboys, which feels great, because I hate the Cowboys.
That Cowboys side is awful.
Yeah, but after 2015, I just want to kill that team every time we play them. But... we only won by 10 points. We conceded a try late on that brought the game closer together. We were certainly the better side. I think the score actually flatters them, if anything, but still very shoddy. Far from perfect. We should have won by a lot more. Reece Walsh needs to come back from the off-season, because there are missing people's posters on lampposts for him. Yeah. Where the hell is this guy?
Where's he gone?
He is making mistake after mistake. He's doing what Darwin Núñez is doing for Liverpool. He's just thinking too much.
But maybe what you don't. Maybe you just don't want them to peak early.
No, but show me something, Reece. the whole like Ben Hunt, I think, has been good. Payne Haas has been superb. He's the Dally medalist through 3 rounds, if you can have one through 3 rounds. I know it's a bit early. I think Adam Reynolds has been good in parts. Selwyn Cobbo, I think, has played really well. We've still got some key players to come back, and Blake Moser, who's a really good young hooker, and Katoni Staggs, who I love. I've loved him for years, Katoni Staggs. But Reece Walsh, he's on I think 900k this year. I think I could have that number wrong. He's close to $1 million a year, especially with this new contract, which kicks in at some point, if not already. When you're on that money, I'm sorry.
Mate, you have to perform every single week. There is no excuse.
As you always say, to whom much is given, much is expected.
That's right. And
you've been given a lot, Reece, and you've been given the looks as much as the money. Make it happen on the field. I was just going to say, if he was half good looking, he'd have the whole package, wouldn't he? Titans, glass half full. Glass half full. I am on the Titans.
One game.
I was on them last year, and they started 0-6, which didn't help me out. But they did get. I think at one point last year they'd won like 8 out of 11 games. Or something.
But they were still. They came never above the 500.
They were too far behind. They were just too far behind. Look, great forward pack. I think Cam Gillard's a great addition. No one talks about how good that pack is. You've got David Fafita, who is coming off the bench at the moment, which feels criminal. You've got I'm going to try and say this right, Tino Fa'asuamaleaui.
Good pronunciation.
Who is just an absolute monster.
I don't know why another team hasn't gone to him and just said, come to us and win something.
Well, because he started at Melbourne, and then the Titans picked him up, gave him a lot of money.
I know, but money's not. He's a guy who wants to win.
He's got. He's obviously had injury troubles as well, but I think there's something to be said. Roy Satasi did this when he went to Souths. This happened in Super Rugby when Chris Latham went to the Reds. There is something incredibly attractive for a player who is a difference maker, going from a club where, they're doing well, they've got some other good players, going to another club who are a cellar dweller and need to build around someone. No. So I think that's something that's really attractive. And
they're not making the 8.
David Fafita, I don't like that he left the Broncos, but I actually applaud that he and Tino have stuck around at the
time.
I think they are. The only issue is their halves are very running halves. They need some kicking in there.
All right, finally, glass half full, glass half empty on Delhi Cherry Evans and his future. Glass half full on the cash. He's going to cash in, isn't he? He's leaving Manly, mate.
He's 36. He's not going to get more than what he's getting now. No one's giving him more than what he's getting now because he's getting a lot for a 36-year-old.
You'll get 2 good years out of that guy. He says he's going to stop playing Origin.
Look, I'm quite so. Then who's the Origin halfback for Queensland?
Who cares?
No, who is it? Seriously, because
Queensland is buying into what New South Wales
it'd be
9 years in a row.
It'll be Ben
Hunt. You're going to get what this feels like. 9 years. Ben Hunt's you guys. 9 years in a row. You're going to lose 9 years in a row.
You know, one thing I realised over the last year or so. Obviously I love Queensland, but I love Queensland because I love the Broncos. So I want Queensland to win Origin, and I love Origin. Love it. I'm not a Queenslander though. I'm not going to act like that. It's life or death if we lose, and I don't think you can act like that either.
I just support a team that lost 9 years in a row, and it's just a nut punch every year. And so last year felt so good because half of New Zealand supports Queensland.
The Commanders were like that as well. Man United are going through that right now. That's right. Yeah, your teams are awful.
Oh, Warriors had a crap year last year.
And another one's coming this year.
No, Warriors are 8 this year. Warriors are making the 8.
They're not making the 8. But
Warriors, glass half full, glass half empty. Right now, Warriors are making the 8.
Okay, I'm looking at the table here. I've got to give you an honest answer. Storm, yes. Bulldogs, yes. Sea Eagles, TBC.
Okay.
Tigers, TBC.
Yes.
Broncos,
yes. I'd say. Sharks, yes.
Yes.
Hey, how many's that?
That's 4 so far.
Titans,
Warriors,
no.
Hold up. Warriors, TBC. Titans are TBC. So
Raiders,
we've got to find teams that are absolute locks for the top 8.
Okay, Panthers. If you put the Panthers in at 5. The rest are a lottery.
Okay, so 5
Raiders,
locks.
Knights, Rabbits, Panthers, Dragons, Roosters. Take the Panthers out of there because we do believe that they'll come back. The rest is a lottery, mate.
So there's 3 spots then. So you've got to narrow that group down.
Yep.
So you've got the Seagulls, the Tigers. You've got the Warriors, the Titans, the Raiders, the Knights, the Bunnies, who don't discount that coach.
And I'm not discounting the Roosters after what I saw.
And I don't think you can discount the Dragons. I really don't. They need to show something, but they have good players.
They're going to be 0-3 after this weekend, mate.
Yeah, I know. They've got a premiership winning coach. So that's 9 teams you've got to whittle down to 3. Now, I think it's fair to say, based on the round 1 performance, that the Raiders are a smidge ahead of the Warriors right now.
Oh, it's aberration, mate.
The Sea Eagles, you can't say that because the Warriors pumped them, but I think the Sea Eagles are a better team. I do.
Can't say that.
The Titans have shown plenty. The Knights are 2-1 as well, and they've looked good. They're tough to beat.
I'd say that.
And the Bunnies are well coached. So I'm not saying the Warriors won't. I'm just saying there's so many.
That's his Warriors are top 5.
This is what we said. This is what we said pre-season. Let's be honest.
You've just
this is what we said
5.
pre-season. This is what we said pre-season. There are so many teams you've got to fit into that.
You just made the Warriors fit.
2 or 3 2 or 3 teams in that
glass half full, glass half empty.
Half of the top 8.
Warriors make the 8.
I can't say glass half empty because they're in the 8 right now. They're 2-1, and they've beaten the Seagulls, for example.
There's progress.
But I don't think they are a lock ahead of someone like the Titans or the Knights or the Bunnies. I don't think they're a lock. But being as objective as I can, without my dislike for the Warriors coming into play here, I can't be too critical because they're 2-1. 2 contrasting performances as well.
I'm going to take that as a glass half full.
Steely against the Roosters, good attack against the Seagulls.
That's half full. That equates to
I'm
half
struggling
full.
a lot right now saying
Half
this.
full.
I'm really struggling.
This is the DSPN